Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Your Views on the News with me, Azhar Ali. Now, some protesters in Bangladesh cheered today when it was announced that the Vice President of Jamaat-e-Islam has been sentenced to death. The tribunal said Dilwar Hussain Saidi had committed murder, torture and rape during the 1971 War of Independence. But not all Bangladeshis were celebrating. Many were in tears hearing this news. They claim Saidi has been the victim of a politically motivated trial that is being used by the Bangladesh government to target its opponents. Clashes between those who oppose what they claim, a political vendetta, and the police left over 40 people dead so far today. Now, I'm expecting my guest in the studio who's going to be taking your calls very soon. My guest is Ajmal Masroor. Many of you are aware of who he is. I hear that he's going to be here imminently, but the phone lines are open. Do call in and tell us what you make of what's taking place today. Do you think what took place is finally going to put to rest this issue of the independence war from 1971? 42 years this has been going on. Will people now feel a sense of justice? Of course, the atrocities that were committed needed a mechanism where justice could be found. Was this International Crimes Tribunal that process? Did it achieve the justice? Or are you of the view that, you know, this was a political game and that, you know, justice isn't being found here, in fact, is making the situation far worse than what it was before? As we saw on our television screens, on the internet, on many forums, the clashes that is taking place has left many thinking that the country is close to civil war. Is that your view? Do you think that Bangladesh is close to civil war? Okay, I believe we've already got a caller, Ahmed from Leeds. Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed.
Hello.
Hello, assalamu alaikum, Ahmed.
Wa alaikum assalam, Azad. We've spoken before. I was just wanting to talk about this issue of Bangladesh and terror.
Sure.
Obviously, I've just caught the program at the start here, and the perception of terrorism and how we see it. You know, is it terrorism of terrorism in terms of state terrorism or terrorism between individuals? You may recall I spoke on before to you, and one of the things I said was the conduct of Muslims is very important in how they conduct themselves. Yeah. As opposed to just turning around and you know, having long beards and saying certain Islamic phrases in every second sentence.
Sure,
you know?
Sure.
And I did actually say to you in a previous program, and I wanted your views on this, is as Muslims, we have to accept the Bible right, as one of the holy books. And there's a fantastic story in the Bible that sums up the character of the Prophet ﷺ, the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, as a teacher, it's a story that I actually show to all the kids I teach, Muslim and non-Muslim. And there are so many things that a person can take from that story and then actually say, actually, this is how you should live your life. Because as you know, the story of the Good Samaritan
absolutely,
is about three individuals, two who happen to be allegedly servants of God, right, priests, who actually, when push comes to shove, they can't behave in a godly way. But it's the Samaritan that does.
No, Ahmed, sorry if you don't mind, because today what we're focusing on is really the death sentence that was handed out to Dilwar Hussain Saidi, who's the Vice President of Jamaat-e-Islam. Now, just quickly to answer your point of view, of course, goodness, wherever goodness is found, we should be promoting goodness, no matter where that source is. That is alluding to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that, you know, knowledge is the property of the believer. So it's not, I mean, it's not that I agree or disagree with that point of view. That's not the issue. The issue really is we should be always promoting good acts. As Muslims, it's our actions that speak louder than our words. And that's not just an Islamic thing, that's a fact. I'm sure you would agree. But just quickly before I move on, Ahmed, what are your views? I mean, do you know what's taking place in Bangladesh? What do you make of the tribunal that's issued this sentence of death?
Unfortunately, I'm slightly ignorant about this matter, only from what my own knowledge is of Bangladesh and the subcontinent in general, in terms of how Muslims are treated by their own governments. A lot of this boils down to possibly, this is what I mean about when I'm talking about conduct of people.
Yeah.
You know, the way people conduct themselves, and terrorism is a definition. Is there state terrorism in a place like this? Are people frightened of certain people speaking in a particular way? Or, like I said, please forgive me, I'm very ignorant about this. I don't know.
No worries, Ahmed. I wouldn't want you to make a statement based on ignorance. Anyway, thank you for your call, Ahmed. Jazakallah khair. Okay, viewers, anyway, we do want to focus on Bangladesh, what's taking place in Bangladesh. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, the International Crimes Tribunal has issued the death sentence to the Vice President of Jamaat-e-Islam, Dilwar Hussain Saidi. We've got a little clip here from Amandla Thomas Johnson with giving you a bit more information of what's taking place.
These protesters in Dhaka, Bangladesh, want the head of Dilwar Hussain Saidi, Vice President of the opposition Jamaat-e-Islami Party. But today, their demands came one step closer when a court sentenced him to death. Saidi was sentenced by the so-called International Crimes Tribunal, an internal court with no international oversight, set up in 2010 by Sheikh Hasina, the country's prime minister, to try alleged war criminals during Bangladesh's War of Independence in '71.
Today, the judgment has been passed from the ICT Tribunal 1 on the first case in this tribunal, which is Chief Prosecutor versus Dilwar Hussain Saidi. He has been convicted to the highest as a death penalty, and the other out of 20, 8 charges have been proved without reasonable doubts, beyond reasonable doubts. So those comprises the killing, deportation, transformation, conversions, murder, rape, etc.
To date, he is the third person to be sentenced by the tribunal. The party's Assistant Secretary General, Abdul Qadir Mullah, was sentenced to life imprisonment last month, whilst Jamaat leader Maulana Abdul Kalim Azad was sentenced to death in absentia. 7 other party members are currently being tried. But with the Jamaat-e-Islami, the country's main opposition party, there are widespread claims that the trials are politicized and have been set up to cull the main threat to the ruling Awami Party's political supremacy. Opposing voices have rung through the halls of power at such notable institutions as the United Nations and Amnesty International. They have criticized the court for failing to follow international standards of due process. But it is within Bangladesh itself that the trial has divided people most, leading to protests, violence, and even deaths throughout the country. Today alone, some 15 people were killed and 200 injured in clashes between Jamaat supporters and Bangladesh police. Whilst the Jamaat has been calling on its countrywide supporters to stage rallies against the tribunal, many more who are in favour of the tribunal have been gathering for weeks in Shahbag Square, Dhaka, to demand the highest possible penalty for the alleged war criminals. With international players still yet to exert any serious pressure on Bangladesh to comply with international procedures, there is a real fear here that the country may be on the path towards further polarisation and, as a consequence, bloodshed, not unlike that seen in 1971. Amandla Thomas Johnson, Islam Channel.
Well, of course, since that report was recorded, the death toll has increased, as I mentioned earlier, to over 40. I believe Ahmed from North London is online. Let's take Ahmed's call, and then I'll come to my studio guest who's joined me. Ahmed?
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes, I'd like to say a couple of points on the judgment just recently made on Saidi's death penalty, which is really abominable, the most abominable incident in the human history. Because as I understand, as a human being, on top of that, I'm a Muslim, I understand that, and I know that my observation and study tells me that there was a kangaroo trial, because the Skype scandal, when it was exposed, after that, people came to know that there was actually something fixed between Mr. Nassim Ahmed, who was Nassim, and
what you're referring to, Ahmed, is what The Economist wrote about this collusion.
What The Economist wrote, and what The Economist actually that was leaked out, and all things were prefixed. And because of that, that trial has lost its legitimacy to continue its trial anymore.
So
even though on the face of all these things, how the trial actually keeps continuing, and upon that, there was no allegation against the Royal Society until 2009 on War Crimes Act or International Crimes on a humanitarian, crimes against humanity. However, what I would like to say, I would like to focus on the point that all this has been exposed, and the government of Bangladesh has to take action against those perpetrators who were actually fixing all these things through tax scandals.
All right, Ahmed, let me stop you there. I think you've made several really good points, and I'll also bring in my guests to discuss some of those points. Jazakallah khair for your views. The phone lines are open, viewers, so if you got a view, what do you make of this death sentence that's been given? What do you make of the situation in Bangladesh? Do call in. The number is on your screen. Now, let me welcome Ajmal Masroor, who's an Imam and Khatib, and I'm sure many of our viewers recognize his face. Jazakallah khair for joining me this evening.
Assalamu alaikum to you and the viewers.
Now, you were recently in Dhaka. I think, you wrote about this on social media, and I think you also done a khutbah which has gone viral, I must say, on social media. I mean, what was your experience whilst you were there?
Let me put the background first. Bangladesh is a very beautiful country. People of Bangladesh are very generous, very sentimental, as well as quite emotional people. They get swayed for the smallest thing and become rather, would I say, emotionally extreme. They become happy very quickly and become very sad and angry very quickly. That's the temperament of Bangladeshis. 1971 was when the biggest crime against Bangladeshis took place, when Pakistan attacked Bangladesh and in that process killed thousands of people, raped, pillaged, looting, burning of civilians took place across Bangladesh, for which Pakistani soldiers and generals who were found to be guilty of war crime were actually forgiven by Mujibur Rahman, the founding president of Bangladesh, the father of the current Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Hasina's father. He forgave them. And the world at large embraced Mujibur Rahman for doing this, because they thought he did a magnanimous thing. Instead of causing more bloodbath, he wanted the country to progress. Irony is, when I went to Bangladesh this time, I saw more sentiment and anger and fervour amongst people, almost bloodthirsty, a small bunch of people wanting to take revenge. They're not the majority of Bangladeshis, by the way. They're a small minority of these people. They're very angry, very emotional, far away from Islam. In fact, they're secular fundamentalists in some of their own practices, not all of them. And some of them are actually very clearly out of Islam because they've been talking about Allah and the Prophet in the most ludicrous manner possible. So when I was in Bangladesh, I saw very polarized society. A small bunch of people wanting to take Bangladesh to the dark ages or open up a dark chapter for Bangladesh, but majority of Bangladeshis wanted to move on. The biggest problem is current government. The current government is hell-bent on taking revenge. Current Prime Minister is very vindictive in her nature. She wants to take revenge for her father's killing. Jamaat Islam was not responsible for her father's killing. I don't support Jamaat, by the way. I don't support Army League. I don't support BNP. I'm not interested in Bangladeshi dirty political parties. Not interested at all. But what I see in this particular party is that they are being driven by nothing but revenge. Blood is what they want. And the 7 people that they're trying, not a single one were named as war criminals in the original list that was made. In fact, the person who has been indicted recently, Saidi today, and death sentence has been passed, he hasn't been even listed as a war criminal ever in the history of Bangladesh.
Well, our previous caller mentioned that before 2009, he was never accused of these crimes. Yeah.
The interesting thing is the War Crimes Tribunal found Saidi to have killed and destroyed Hindus in a constituency, particularly in a particular part of the area, where Saidi also happens to have been elected as an MP twice with landslide victory. Now, answer me this question, Azad. If Hindus were killed by Saidi, why would Hindu majority constituency vote Saidi as their MP twice in a row in a parliamentary election? Are Hindus lunatics? Of course they're not. They're wonderful people in Bangladesh, equal citizens of Bangladesh. Do they have no brain? No, of course they do. So what we are seeing is a political vindictiveness that is driving this whole campaign. What we're seeing is a government that is hell-bent on making sure it eliminates political opponents, which are Jamaat Islami and BNP alliance together. I don't support them again. And this government is working with Indian Secret Service agents that we have from good information to destabilize Bangladesh and destroy its Islamic heritage once and for all. And that is what my contention is. Okay. My whole khutbah was based on that.
Okay, well, I mean, that is contention, and viewers do call in if you agree or disagree with what Brother Ajmal Masroor is saying. Of course, I mean, this is one side. The other side of the story is that there's been an absence of justice for 42 years. These people are the people that carried out, to a degree, these war crimes. There's a process that's been set up.
You said these people, Azad.
Yes.
Who are these people?
Well, you have Abul Kalam Azad that's been sentenced to death in absentia. You have Abdul Qadir Mullah, who's been...
I have studied two cases. I can talk about two cases.
Okay.
Abdul Qadir Mullah's case I've studied thoroughly.
Who didn't get a death sentence, and incidentally, which caused this Shahbag uprising demanding the death sentence. And
so I've studied his case thoroughly, and I've studied Maulana Saidi's case thoroughly. Don't forget, Saidi has a prominent role in Bangladesh as one of the orators and the greatest Quran Mufassir in the country. In fact, he probably has been in the history of Bangladesh. So I've studied their cases thoroughly. Not a single accusation have been proven in the courts. The opposition is what they want to silence. But look at the government position in this. They found Abdul Qadir Mullah as guilty, or the court found Abdul Qadir Mullah as guilty. But Abdul Qadir Mullah was studying as well as living in Dhaka University campuses in 73. So straight after 1971, he is the one who murdered 170 people or so. He comes and lives openly in the most important university of Bangladesh called Dhaka University. That's the first one. Secondly, he gets appointed as a teacher in the most prestigious school in Dhaka University as a teacher there. Thirdly, he gets appointed as a lecturer at the military college run by Bangladeshi government in 1976 or 78. In 79 or something around those a time, he gets appointed as the Director General of Islamic Foundation by Mujibur Rahman himself. Or around that time, I can't remember the exact date. And then interesting, even better, then he becomes the secretary of the Bangladesh Press Club.
Right.
Now, this guy is supposed to be a war criminal, walks around in daylight in Dhaka city, lives in Dhaka University, the epicenter of Bangladeshi politics, becomes the teacher of the school, becomes the teacher of the military college, gets appointed by Mujibur Rahman as the director of Islamic Foundation. Was he not a war criminal at that time? When they listed 38,000 people to have been the war criminals in Bangladesh, Abdul Qadir Mullah's name wasn't on it.
Right.
So the question to Bangladeshi government and the current tribunal is, on what basis did you find Abdul Qadir Mullah guilty? So that's number one. Number two.
Well, we did actually, just so our viewers are aware, we did try to get someone from the government or the Awami League or this think tank, the ICF, to come on. But unfortunately, no one was available to come in.
I'm not surprised they're not available. The interesting thing about Saidi is that Saidi was not involved in politics until 1973. That's 3 years after Bangladesh was made independent. Not a single person has got a single case against Saidi in any court about his involvement in any political activities. Now, what's the crime Saidi has committed? Nobody knows. It's an accusation. You know, you can't demand hanging or death sentence.
Let me ask you, just hold that thought.
Yes,
I want to go to a caller. Manu from Surrey. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. You're on air. Your views.
Wa alaikum assalam. So, yeah.
Yes, carry on.
Yeah. Basically, I'm watching your channel, and originally I'm from India, but my mother tongue is Sylheti. So, as a Sylheti, I want to say something.
Sure.
If like they are giving punishment, the Liberation Society for the murdering or something. So what Hasina is doing, what the punishment we can do for her, because she is still an innocent human being as well. Because as a Muslim, as a Sylheti, but I'm an Indian, but still my heart goes to Saidi because I love him very much as a Muslim. So why don't people doesn't think in that way? So they keep thinking They keep saying Bengali, we are Bengali. Bengali, we are as a Bengali. In India, I live as a Bengali. So what does it mean? It doesn't matter. We are Muslim. So we should look as a Muslim. But we don't. Anyway, I know my verse will not be the right.
Well, no. Let me just ask you this question. So do you think if Saidi is hanged, do you think the situation in Bangladesh will get better or worse?
It will be even more than worse.
All right, thank you for your views. And that's what a lot of people do fear, that the situation, I mean, this was supposed to be something that would draw a line under this, 42 years of this heartache for many people. And let's not kid about it, the crimes that were committed were horrendous.
Of course.
But it seems...
we all want...
Everyone's wanted the justice.
We want trial in a fair and free court. What's happened to the court itself is interesting. Government appointed the court, called it International War Crimes Tribunal. It has no jurisdiction with International War Crimes Tribunal whatsoever. In fact, it's violated International War Crimes Tribunal's mandate repeatedly. International War Crimes Tribunal have asked Bangladesh to not use the terminology, but Bangladeshi government decided to become pompous with the name itself. Right. Number one. Number two, they appointed judges, majority of whom are politically aligned to the government. Number three, the judge colludes before with somebody else, just like The Economist published his Skype conversation about sentencing these people before the trial is over. Number three, we see constantly in the parliament, parliamentarians and cabinet ministers of Awami League demanding that these people will be hanged no matter what happens. In fact, the Prime Minister herself says, no matter what happens, we are going to hang these people. Now, if this is the message from the government, from the Prime Minister, from the cabinet, and if the judges are politically biased, I can't see anything but a kangaroo court that has been set up by Awami League just to showcase one thing, and that is to put a smoke screen over the eyes of Bangladeshis for the abysmal failure of Awami League government in the last 5 years. They have not been able to provide security to life, security to property, security to intellect, family or faith of any people in Bangladesh. Murder rate is highest, abduction is highest, extrajudicial killing is regular, robbery, theft, rape. And sometimes some of these are orchestrated by the leading party called Awami League Students' Wing. They behave like thugs and mafias. And this government has failed us miserably in every way possible. Okay, well, we're coming up to a break. Inshallah, viewers, we do want to hear your views, so do call us after the break. I think the question I think we'll start off with is, how is the situation going to get better? Because if, as our last caller mentioned, it's going to get far worse than what it already is, then I don't see the point of this. It's not drawing a close to the chapter. But, we do want to kind of hear the other view. If you were happy with the verdict that was made, do phone in and tell us why you're happy and that you think that this has finally put an end to this sorry chapter in Bangladesh's young history. Anyway, more of this after the break. I'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.